The Ministry of Energy has disclosed that the national security apparatus is investigating threats by some youths to blow up oil facilities in the Western region. Former Energy Minister Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa, in a question tabled for the minister to come answer, demanded details on what is being done to avert such a situation. Peter Amewu says he has handed the issue over to the national security because of the sensitive nature of it. The House, in the meantime, has been concluding a debate on the 2019 budget statement for approval with addresses from both the majority and minority sides. And Joseph Opoku Gakpo will be joining us, actually joins me now on the phone with some more information, beginning with that threat we're learning of on the oil installations in the Western region. Joseph, what more do we know?
Hello, Gifty.
Yes. What more do we know about this imminent threat?
So this is something that the Member of Parliament, Philip Dele, had brought to the attention of the House. Himself, he wasn't present this morning because the question had been tabled, I understand, some months ago for the minister to come respond to. But Kwame Agboja, who is a Member of Parliament for Adaklo, asked the question on behalf of Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa and Mr. Boa and Mr. Peter Amewu, who is the Energy Minister, explained to Parliament that this is something that he has written officially to the National Security Ministry, that it's about time that they look into that particular threat. But he went on to say that for security reasons, he wasn't ready and willing to give any additional details on the nature of the threat and who exactly was responsible for this. But then he assured the House that they have the situation under control and that in due course, when the National Security Apparatus is done with their investigation, we will be back to brief members of Parliament appropriately.
But Joseph, it's quite curious that we don't know who these groups are. We don't know who these youth groups are. How did members of Parliament react to that bit of the information where there seemed to be a little bit of, a blank?
So I've been doing a little bit of digging, trying to get a sense from the minority generally on how come they would want to push and get the minister to respond to questions on this issue. And the details I'm getting are that apparently this is an issue that they claim came up earlier in the year, that they're linking to the former Energy Minister, Watia Jakon. And they claim that he spoke somewhere in the United States and makes that particular claim that there were some people who were planning to bomb the country's oil installation, and that they claim the former Energy Minister, Watia Jakon, has said that in the United States and found the situation worrying. And so even in pursuing this particular matter, for which they brought it to the attention of the House, that's in Parliament, they say the details and the facts and the basis for which they wanted the Energy Minister to come respond to questions on that was the comment that Watia Jakon had actually put out. And so they indicate that they weren't generally satisfied with the responses that came from Peter Amewu, looking at the fact that Watia Jakon himself is not there to respond to the question, which is why they look forward to any further updates that would come from the Energy Ministry and the National Security as far as this investigation is concerned.
Well, Joseph, tell me a little bit about the minister's demeanor. Was the minister, the Energy Minister, in Parliament to answer the question? You said
yes.
Okay.
John Peter Amewu was in Parliament himself.
Right.
He indicated that he actually responded to not just questions on that, but other questions having to do with rural electrification.
But Joseph, let's stay a little bit on this particular story. When this part of the story, what was his demeanor when he answered this question? Did it look like a worried minister? Is this something you could have told from his demeanor?
No, he actually didn't look that. He looked normal. He usually look on any day. Showing up in Parliament to come respond to the questions. He didn't look apprehensive. He didn't look abnormal in any way. He just, got in front of MPs and responded to the question.
Well, Joseph, I'd like for you to hold on a little bit so you can tell us what else they spoke about in Parliament. But you were also mentioning that he answered questions related to the Energy Ministry, sector, but not necessarily about the oil.
So there were a series of questions that he responded to which included the claim that there were plans to bomb the energy installations.
Okay.
And so there was a question on rural electrification projects that have been ongoing across the country generally, and specifically in the Bole Bamboy area, and what is being done to ensure that those projects go on. And he indicated that the Sino Hydro firm from China is helping with that particular project. The aggregate financing has been provided, and indicated that they will be completed very soon, so that then residents in the Bole Bamboy area will be able to benefit from electricity.
You hang on for me shortly. I'll come back to you. So we talk about the rest of the conversation they had specifically about the budget. But right now, let's deal with this imminent threat, so to speak. I have on the line the executive director of the of KITE, that's the Kumasi Institute of Technology, Energy and Environment, Ishmael Ejekumhene. Mr. Ejekumhene, thank you very much for your time this afternoon here on the Pulse.
Good afternoon.
Right. Let me also let you know that I have here in the studio Kweku Owusu-Prepra, who has lived in the Western region, reported on the Western region for well over 10 years. He'll help us, put the issues and the conversation into perspective as far as the people who live in the Western region are concerned. Kweku, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Certainly. Now, let me start with you, Mr. Ejekumhene. I'm wondering whether or not this is a matter of concern from where you sit, and to what extent is it a matter of concern? Because anybody could say, well, we would bomb this, we would bomb that. It could well be empty threats, right?
Exactly. It could be just like recently we heard some folks, some guys, faceless people, threatening to bomb, send some explosives at KNUST. It could be, but you never know when to take some of these threats seriously. So yes, whereas you want to leave room for the possibility that it could be another hoax or something like that, you also need to be sure that you are ready if these people are to go ahead and carry through their threats.
Okay.
So yes, it could be that way. Nobody knows. Nobody could tell except God whether these guys are actually a serious threat or not.
Interesting. Let me bring
certainly knowing what is happening, for example, the Niger Delta, where pipelines are being blown here and there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of danger, the kind of harm, or the kind of damage these guys can cause if they decide to go ahead. And for me, the closest installation that we need to make sure we are is well secured. Hello?
Okay. Well, hold on for me. Let me bring Kweku into this conversation, and let's talk about the characteristic of youth there in the area. Kweku, what can you tell us about young people in the the sort of demographics that we're dealing with here as far as the Western region is concerned?
So the FPSOs are just about 64 nautical miles offshore.
Okay.
That's just about 120, 130 kilometers offshore. So to get to it, you must have sailed for that long.
Okay.
Fishermen along these coastlines can do that. So access is possible. Another point worth noting in this discussion is also that time was when the people there were very agitated about the oil find and what it brings to them, and the 10% call, which was championed by the chiefs, and the need for jobs in their communities. But all of these things seem to have whittled down a bit. Let's separate the youth in this area into two.
Okay.
We have the people in the Sekani Takrade area, the new Takrade boys, who are quite aggressive and are able to access the port and stow away.
Okay.
So you can imagine the level of courage
which is
that
a
they
usual
have,
trend. Stowaway is a usual trend around there.
which is normal, something that people actually train to do.
Okay.
And then we have the people on the western side along the coast from Ejam, from Agunankwanta, so far up to Bonyere or Benin, and to Atuabo, and then around Cape 3 points.
Right.
These are scattered young boys and girls, individuals, sometimes no education, who only live on fishing and farming.
Right.
Can they do this? Access is possible, as I have said, if they have the right equipment or the right explosives. How do they even get that material close enough to the rig, so that, or the FPSO, so that they can explode? Mind you, the parameter around the FPSO is 500 meters, where no one is allowed to access.
Okay.
Mind you again that there is a constant patrol team of naval speedboats and the naval ships that are also in constant patrol on the vessel. On these vessels, on the FPSO, also are security guards who are looking out right from the starboard side, that's on the right side, and other sides of the vessel.
Okay.
So security is tight over there. So you must have one. You can do this by canoe.
Okay.
And you must, when you even have the canoe to get close enough, you must have that. Something must drive the explosive close enough to the facility so that it can explode. Okay. You need to torpedo it. You need to give it some drive.
Right.
And these people, as I know now, may not have such capacity.
Okay.
Another point is that, fine, maybe there is also external influence. Maybe they've gotten in touch with the boys from Niger Delta.
Hopefully not.
Or
Hopefully
somewhere.
not.
And so they
Hopefully
have the
not.
capacity.
Okay.
But that also comes to meet the ever-present capacity of the Ghana Navy to defend these installations.
Okay, which is where I bring you back in, Mr. Jakumene, to find out from you. You mentioned that, well, it could well be empty threat. It could also, it also doesn't mean that we should not be ready to deal with any of the outcomes should they carry it out. But what do we need to be ready? Before you answer that, let me draw you back a little bit to help us look at what kind of installations we have in this place. Do you know?
Yeah, so for the upstream, basically the FPSO, and there are the moment 3 of them. But like I've forgotten the name. Like he was saying, it takes a lot of effort to get there.
Okay.
But the closest we have, and that it's also a very strategic and a very important facility, the Ghana gas processing plant.
Okay.
And the 110-kilometer pipeline that brings gas from Atuabo to the power plant in Takrady or Abuade.
Okay.
So those, for me, the immediate concern would be for those that installation. Of course, the SG and the Sankofa project will have an onshore facility. But those are the ones that are closest, and I mean, the gas processing plant is sitting right in the middle of 3 adjoining communities, so people can misbehave. But again, those are the closest to man. If they are looking at the western region, then the gas processing plant is, again, the most precious thing that needs to be protected very well.
So back to my second question, what do you indicated that we must be ready? What is needed for us to be ready, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I believe these plants are protected anyway. So just make sure that the security is further beefed up to provide for any eventuality. But I guess we need to just be sure that ultimately disgruntled youth in the system are sought after, and if there's a way in which we need to talk to them and make them understand what's going on and how they are indirectly or directly benefiting from that. I mean, those are some of the sentiments that we cannot just overlook. But I know that they are ready to handle any sector that if these threats are real.
Well, speaking of which, let me come back to you, Kweku, and find out whether or not how you think community engagement can play a role in dealing with this. I mean, the national security will do their own investigations, but community engagement.
There's some continual community engagement in all the 6 coastal districts of the western region.
Okay.
And that was even given a boost by the establishment of the Western Region Coastal Foundation, which has a very, very scientific, practical approach in collecting grassroots information from every community, so that, and then they escalate it to the point of the chiefs, and the chiefs and some selected individuals within all the communities will come to a public forum and then vent. And all their concerns will be addressed. So surely, I don't know where this minister picked this information from. Petroleum Commission also has a very detailed, practical, that is kind of a second nature to the Western Regional Coastal Foundation's approach to dealing with this one. Mind you, also Friends of the Nation and other organizations are doing similar community engagements, trying to gather right from the household levels, sentiments, concerns, emotions of people and their expectations of the oil and gas industry. That's why I question sort of the source of the information from the minister, because then this, and I've been to this public forum several times, and year on after year, you realize that the anger, the strength behind the agitations goes down a bit as people begin to understand the industry the more, and as they agitate, some of them get jobs. For instance, within the Ghana Gas enclave, where we have the installation, many of the young men, or some of the young men who qualify, have jobs. Samsule, where they are doing the ENI gas processing plant, now there's massive employment amongst the people. So with all these mechanisms and information gathering processes within those areas, trying to manage the expectations of the people, these sentiments or these exaggerated, or concerns to blow up the facility would have been picked up somewhere through this channel. It would have been sifted out somewhere. So I believe that community engagements must continue. So they can pick up from the mechanisms that were already put in place from the beginning of these installations, where these installations had to be made, and pick up from there and engage these people. And perhaps contact some of these agencies and organizations that are on the grassroots, having communication managers right within the communities, and pick up some of these issues. Maybe they will sift this threat out if it exists. Okay,
we'll find out as we go along. I mean, this is a developing story, so we'll be getting along with it. Mr. Jakumhene, I'm going to come back to you, but let me quickly go to Joseph Opoku-Gakpo. We need to let him go briefly so he can run us through what else has been happening in Parliament, and then we'll come back to this conversation and finish it. Joseph.
Yes, dear.
Right. We know that they also spoke about the budget, you said.
Yes, so today they concluded the debate on the 2018 budget statement. We got addresses from both the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, and the majority leader, Osaiti Mensah-Bonsu. And the minority leader is asking that the president crafts the Ministry for Special Development Initiatives. He says that they've seen a situation where there is a conflict between what they are doing and what the Coastal Development Authority, the Northern Development Authority, and other development authorities are doing. And he doesn't understand what exactly the 1.5 billion cedis or so that the ministry is being given would actually be used for. So he served notice that they on the minority side would not support approval for the 1.5 billion cedis that will eventually be given to that particular ministry, and they would object to that. He also spoke about what he says the rising debt of the country that they would want the government to deal with. But he got responses to some of his concerns from the Minister for Special Development Initiatives, our Kumsen, who insists that they are working, there is no case of conflict, and that this thing is because they see her ministry as a threat to the NDC. That's how come they're making those demands.
Joseph, thank you very much for that update. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo there, he's been in Parliament for us, bringing us up to speed on the bit about the budget and what the minority said they would not consent to approving that particular loan. But the substantive issue has been what we're picking up from Parliament again about an imminent threat on oil installations. I mean, is it an empty threat? That is what we're teasing out. I have Ishmael Jakumhene, who is Executive Director of KITE, on the line with me. I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Jakumhene. This news, I mean, which we're picking up today, it sounds as though from what Joseph said, that the minister has said it's has said this some time ago outside the country. Now that it's becoming a topic for debate here in Ghana, how should we handle this topic, and to what extent will it affect the capacity for it to affect investor confidence? Because obviously all the people who are in this industry, well, maybe all is an exaggeration, but most of the people who are in this industry are not from here. They're mostly investors.
Exactly. I mean, that's something that I even wanted to bring up. The fact that those news actually broke several months ago when they went to the OTC, that offshore conference in Houston. And it's interesting that it's the minority who are now asking the question on the floor of Parliament, because when the minister said that, they said he was, the then minister, they said he was just creating fear and panic or something like that. But so for the minority to also have picked up those signals and have actually brought a question to the floor of Parliament means that, I mean, maybe those rumors are taken in, you know. So yes, but it's not really good for investor confidence, except that it will remain rumors, okay? Or, I mean, threats until, God forbid, something actually happens. But most investors would be careful if the country is volatile, and you have some of these rebels and these guys doing those things that we know are being done in the Niger Delta. So it's going to affect investor confidence. But mind you, there are still investors who are in the Niger Delta, even though they are kidnapped every now and then, and ransom are being paid here and there. They still will go there. The higher the risk, the more the returns. But we don't want Ghana to be associated with those what's the word? I mean, these organized groups who are literally terrorists, and people who are just trying to cause confusion. So the investors would keep an eye on that. Generally, the people know that Ghana is relatively peaceful, and they will continue to come until that is proven not to be the case. But it has some effect, and that's how come. I remember the then minister said the national security had been investigating the issue on the quiet. You know, you don't go and say this. That's why people were also not happy. He said it on such a big platform as the OTC in Houston. But those are the signals they were picking at the time. And for the minority who doubted the credibility of the story at the time, to bring it up on the floor of Parliament could mean that there could be some element of truth in what is being said there. But having said that, the investors wouldn't just stop coming because somebody has issued a threat. But God forbid, nothing of that sort should happen. If it happens here, then they will say that, okay, there's some element of risk, and we need to take that into consideration in deciding to come to Ghana or not.
So I've been asking our viewers to share with us what their thoughts are about how government should deal with this issue. It certainly sounds like a delicate issue, but then again, we have Nigeria to learn from. We have other countries to learn from. What are your own expectations of how government should deal with this delicate matter?
I think government, first and foremost, apart from tightening the security just in case there are any loopholes, would also have to, I mean, that's how come one of the reasons why we have national security that can go down and pick some intelligence. If this group actually exists, let's look for them. Let's try and see if we can find out exactly what their problems are and see if that wouldn't help. I mean, that's if they can find them. So 2 levels. I know there are a lot of consultations, like the other, I've forgotten his name.
The gentleman with me here in the studio?
Yes, the one you have with you in the studio. I mean, like he's saying, we were fortunate to have had the Nigerian experience when we found oil. So most of the things that we set out to do was to make sure that we don't have another Niger Delta on our hands.
But then it also provides some sort of, if you like, blueprint. It also provides a certain level of learning area for people who, like you say want to be mischievous, for miscreants.
Exactly. So we have that very close experience, that's very close and relevant, because Nigerians and Ghanaians, we are almost the same, in most of the things we do. So yes, we do have that, and I mean, they've tried over these years to just make sure that these guys are happy. A lot of negotiation. The thing is, you don't allow them to even start in the first place, so that you have people capitalizing on their existence, resourcing them to create more, mayhem.
Okay.
Do a lot of damage. So let's make sure that if it's possible to identify them, that if they truly exist, see if we can sit them down and talk to them. And I mean, I try to attempt to, if they have very genuine reasons, see how you can meet them halfway, or just let them understand that, look, what we're doing is in our common good and all that. But again, it could all be a hoax, and it could all be very well just causing fear and panic.
Hold on for me. I'll take a very final comment. Let me go on Facebook now. We've been asking some questions, and I'll take your final comment as well as a quick Super Press final comment. But this is a question that, not really a question, a statement we put on Facebook that Ghana's oil installation seems to be under some kind of threat. Well, because we're hearing this afternoon, as we put there, that the national security is investigating some threats by youth there. When asking our viewers what their expectation of how government should handle this matter is, and they've put down a couple of comments. We could go through them quickly. Adamu Ziba Ibrahim says, since it's a delicate matter, Oga chopping it in a delicate way, the youth will blow it up in a delicate way for their fair share of the national cake. For the delicate must be delicated in a delicate way. I see the joke you're trying to make out of it, but well, let's just call it by, take it as by the way. Thomas Edward Aquena says, they have the men, that's in quotes, they have the men, what will my expectations do? And by so I believe that you're referring to the president, who said that he has the men to work. And you're asking, what will your expectation do? Well, your expectation will help government know what the people feel, how the people feel, what the people think they should do. And it helps them to take decisions. Oxygen Adam says, why should they sit there while the resources from that area are used to cater for one family and their friends? They should blow up and lose everything. Certainly, Adams, you don't want to advise anybody to do that. The repercussions you wouldn't like. You have family in Ghana. We need to protect ourselves. Opon Chicheku says, false alarm. Bring us something productive to read. Well, it is in Parliament. It is a conversation they're having in Parliament. So it is not false alarm. It could be, but it is something that's happening in Parliament. And at JoyNews, when it happens, we report. Apia Kusi says, another tool to fight against corruption. Free giving rich mineral resources ended up to the pocket criminals in NDC and MPP. God bless Western Region. Oil for Food program isn't happening in our nation. Okay, no Ghana Delta, I will say. Biney says the rigs are over 69 kilometers from shore. I'm not saying they can't travel that over 9 hours just to gain what? Don't create useless panic in this country. Well, let's say that to Parliament, maybe. Ebenezer Amankwa says, I support them. Good move. Lawe Edward says, a step in the right direction. Daniel Goodness says, they should hold on until we finish building the cathedral. And someone says, we don't want any expectations from government. And you go on and on. That's a serious threat. Selassie Kwame says, they better attend to their needs, which is the point that Mr. Ejekumhene, you were making. Let me see if I can take one more or two more final comments. Get them and charge them with terrorism acts. That is Kofi Erike says, get them and charge them with terrorism act and make sure they rot in jail for a very long time. Hamas says, when friends and family and baby mamas are chopping our oil money, this will happen. And Akia Louise says, please, please don't. This will set the country back. And he certainly don't want to see the country go back. Robert Ayibo says, I did say that those were my final comment, but let me just add these. Robert Ayibo says, they can't do anything. Just relax, my people. Che Bafor says, you see, when few politicians eat and the masses go hungry, this is the result. So I see a very interesting trend there. There are those who feel that this is a false alarm. There are those who feel this is as a result of poverty. This is as a result of people's needs not being met. They're saying that there's people who feel actually that this is as a result of corruption. So you see all kinds of interesting trends going on. In fact, there are people who think we shouldn't even be talking about it at all. Mr. Jakumhene, in your final comments, I don't know if you feel this is even worth the discussion, because some people feel we shouldn't even talk about it.
Again, once this thing gets to the floor of Parliament and is being talked about, I know. I mean, I would have wished that you don't bring some of these issues up. These are national security issues. Let them do the investigation. Let's tighten the security. Let them think that they can strike if these people are around. And let's see, they will realize that they can fool around. So, yes, I mean, you will be tempted to sweep this thing under the carpet and treat it with the content it deserves. But, again, you cannot also say that you're not going to consider some of these things and rather plan and prepare against any such madness if it should ever happen. But, you know, once we elevate this discussion to the floor of Parliament, then, I mean,
it's open to discussion.
Exactly.
And if you're not careful and you leave it out of the discussion, then you leave room for speculations,
so
and you leave room for fake news.
I wouldn't blame any media house for picking it up, and I think I rather we didn't talk about it in the first place. But once it's on the floor of Parliament and the minister has been summoned to answer that question, it's definitely going to be out there. The answer is there. Everybody who cares to know will know that it's been discussed. So what we're talking about now, I mean, I think it's been very, very objective and fair. We haven't said that that's the case, but we're saying that if indeed these threats are real, let's tackle it on two fronts. Let's strengthen the security. Secondly, let's see if we can identify and locate them and talk them out of any such thing by trying to meet them, see how you can address whatever concerns they may have.
Certainly. Mr. Jakumhene, thank you so much for your time this afternoon here on The Pulse. Ishmael Jakumhene, he's with Kyten. He's been helping us bring this matter into perspective. And Kwaku, you've heard what people feel and what Mr. Jakumhene is saying. Now, there are two sides to this particular matter. One side is whether or not this is even a threat worth paying attention to. But once again, once it's in Parliament, then it's out. It's out there, and everybody is discussing it. But do you feel it's more about getting to the bottom of wherever this threat is coming from and dealing with it, or just saying this is a national security issue, let's sweep it under the carpet, or leave it for the national security agencies to deal with it?
A bit of all that you've said is relevant for me, and I go back to the Western region every fortnight. And sometimes when I go very deep and interact with the people I know. I've not picked up any signal like that. Okay. It's calmer than it was before.
Right. Okay.
So I won't give this any attention.
Okay.
Because it's really the days where people were angry and they were seeking some benefits from oil. Yeah. In fact, the days where the Ghana gas
facility,
what's it called, compensations, had not been paid. Those were the days where people wanted to blow up things.
Okay.
Not now.
But it's died down.
Those are solved issues. Okay. Sanzule gas processing plant and all the issues around it properly managed. Okay. So we've passed that level. Maybe the minister might have said this in a certain context, and has been reported and exaggerated, and I mean the message has changed till up to this point. Right. I don't think it's anything.
You don't think? Okay. Kwekwe also prepared there. He's been reporting from the Western region for well over 10 years now. He actually lives there. He has family there as well, and so he does not feel that it represents what he picks up on the ground. But it's still, as we've told you, a national security issue. We're told that they're investigating it. We'll be here and follow the developing story.